really, my goal today, like I said, is to make sure that we kind of present some options to side hustling pastors because with inflation going up and everything being crazy and pastors aren't getting paid anymore. Sometimes it's just a few $100s is all we need to kind of make ends meet, or maybe $1,000 a month or something like that. And so instead of getting another job, it's probably easier to find side hustles. And I've done a lot of side hustling as a pastor myself, so I know a lot about it. And a lot of these that I'm going to present today are ones that I've tried, or I know people that have tried. So all of them come out of contextual experiences with pastors, or with my own journey. And so really though, the first steps, and we're not going to get into this today, this would be in another time, but the first steps would be to create a budget. How much do you need? Like how much exactly you need, because each of these ideas and others that are out there, um, have create different sort of price points, bring in different amounts of money. So figuring out how much you need will sort of eliminate some and or add some. And then the other is how much time can you invest in it? Where can you get that time? If it's a specific time block, then you'll want to look at different side hustles than if it's sort of as you go or on the computer or whatever. And so those are important things, budget and time. And I'll also make sure that we have some resources on our website that highlight both of those at some point down the road. Um, or if you're watching this later on, then it's already on there. The goals though today are 20. I'm going to present 20 side hustle ideas that pastors can do. And then you can kind of run with them as you go, or what it would look like. And then really sort of open up my time. And this will also be a link on the website for anyone that wants to spend 30 or more minutes to actually map out a path forward. And that will be something that we do down the road as it goes. And so really the first one, this is going to be for more the artsy and the craftsy pastors. I have a friend that's really a Boy Scout of America type guy, that does a lot of Etsy type stuff, sells knives and sells wood blocks and sells things like that. And so if you're an artsy pastor, especially like a worship arts pastors that are good with graphic designs and good with things like that, you can actually create an Etsy page that has a lot of these sort of designs and cards and posters and things like that that you're doing the artsy side that you can do, and you can spend as much time or as little time as you want on it. And depending on what you sell, you can make a few $100s. Some people turn it into a whole career, but that's a lot of hustle. Side hustle on the side is really just a few $100s, would probably make the most amount of sense. The next is Fiverr. And that's what's fascinating. I've done this Fiverr. I haven't done Upwork, but it's the same idea. It's the same concept. And Fiverr basically is you just provide services for anybody that wants to um like buy what you offer. So for me, when I was on there, I would offer to help coach or even provide feedback for sermons, um, and things like that. You can do coaching on there. You can do virtual assistant on there. You can do anything that you feel like somebody would be willing to pay extra for consultation or things like that. Then you can put it on there, and you can sell it, and you can go for it. So a few of the things that I did when I was on there was memorial prep, because there's a lot of people die all over the place. They need help with memorials, sermon prep, coaching. And I made a few $100s probably a month doing some Fiverr type Upwork stuff. That's something that would be a good one for anyone that just wants to be remote. See, the time thing on that is a sort on your own time. You sort of put your own time limits on it. You have all that kind of stuff. And this is one of the ones I could help someone walk through what that would look like. Virtual assistant. Now, virtual assistant can be a part-time or a full-time job. It can even be a side hustle. Now it's becoming more and more of a real job. And I don't mean like it ever wasn't, but it's kind of started as a side hustle. And this is where basically what it is online, you offer up services to be able to help someone be their assistant, whether it's through answering emails, or whether it's through creating templates, or whether it's doing some sort of copywriting, or any of the other things that somebody would use an assistant for. You can do it, data entry, all that kind of stuff. And you would just maybe have a client book of different bosses that you help with virtual assistant. This is for the admin pastors, the ones that love sort of this type of things. There are full businesses now that do it, and you can get jobs in that, and they can pay you hourly. They can pay you part-time. They can pay you as you do projects. So you can make this your own thing. You can get into virtual assistant companies. You could even make it a full-time job. The third is Turo, and I like this one. This one's fun. This one's an interesting one because this one's entrepreneurial. If you're an entrepreneurial type person, this was a fun one because Turo is basically the opportunity to rent out your car, or a car that you own. It's like Airbnb for cars, or vehicles. Trucks and vans especially do really well on Turo because obviously you don't need those all the time. Maybe you have family in out of town and you just need a 12-passenger van, and you want to all drive together, or you have a pickup truck and somebody needs to move and they only need it for a few days. And so Turo is a fascinating one that you can do. I know people that have truly bought cars and then put them on Turo. And even though they're paying maybe $300 a month to make this car payment, they're making $300 a week renting this thing out. And so that is one of the opportunities that Turo sort of presents itself, allowing you to sort of be entrepreneurial. You could get multiple cars. I know there's people on Turo that have 4 or 5 cars that they don't even drive. They just rent them all out. But if you have an extra vehicle, or if you don't use yours very often, or if you even just don't use it on the weekends, this could be an opportunity to make a few $100s pretty easily, to 1,000 or 2,000, or it depends on how entrepreneurial you want to be. And this one is a little bit more hybrid, I guess. It's local. You don't actually have to meet anyone. You can actually set it up so they can go to a specific spot and they can get the keys out from underneath in a lockbox that you've given them the code via the app. And so it's a unique one in the sense that it's sort of this hybrid sort of thing. It does have to be local in the sense that somebody's getting your car and you have to maintain it, but at the same time, you do a lot of the work remotely. So the next one, let's see, Airbnb, obviously, this is a big one. This is a big popular one. If you have extra places, or if you want to buy a house, or if you have a place you can convert, this can be huge. This could be huge. I don't need to get into this one too much because Airbnb is a pretty classic side hustle, but I do have pastor friends that do take advantage of the Airbnb Vrbo sort of world. If they're even to the point where if you just have extra property, you can set up yurts and things like that to be able to do this. 6 is courier. Now, obviously, when we think of courier, we think of Uber and Lyft and Instacart pretty easily, but you can actually get other courier jobs where you basically transport medical supplies from one hospital to another, or things like that. So like this, the ability to transport things is a huge side hustle sort of business, and you can make anywhere between 15 to 25 bucks an hour. And I know that some people are like, I don't want to drive people around in my car, and that's where Uber Eats comes in, or Instacart. Instacart's a really fun one. I know some pastors that love doing Instacarts because they'll just wake up early in the morning, go to the grocery store, they just sit in a spot. The grocery people bring them out, put them in their trunk, and then they bring them to the house, drop them on the porch, and then they get paid later, and then they go to work. So you can do things like that where you're not always driving clients around. You can actually sort of do Instacarts or Uber Eats or things like that. And it's really kind of up to you. This one's a good one because it does make you anywhere between 15 to 25 bucks an hour, but it's very sort of how you want to do it, how much you want to spend time on it, how much you need, and how much time you have. Amazon Flex is a new one. It's driving for Amazon essentially, but you do it yourself. It's an app. You actually download this app. It's called Amazon Flex. And basically you have to get approved to be one of their people that deliver their packages. Obviously, they're not going to trust you just to go steal all their packages and run away with them. So you have to go through a process of being approved, but basically it's an opportunity that they've set up for people that want side hustle money, similar to Uber Eats or Uber but you sign up for time blocks on their app to be able to say, I can deliver in these time blocks. You show up in that time block if it gets approved, to pick up the packages that you're to deliver, and then you go deliver them all, and then you get paid. And it's all up to you. You're not an employee of Amazon. You're not, you don't have to worry about specific shifts or specific times. If you're on vacation, you just don't sign up for a block, and each week you can pick new blocks. You can pick new blocks of times that you're willing to deliver in, and you're willing to go do this. And it's pretty fascinating. Once again, it's another thing where you could do in the evenings, or you could do in the mornings, or you could do something like that where you make it work around your own schedule. It's a fascinating one that I haven't personally got into, but it's something that would be a lot of fun because you just put on your favorite podcast and deliver Amazon packages and get paid decent money for it. The next is the farmer's market idea. The only reason I put this in there is because I've had lots of friends that do stuff like this. They'll brew their own beer, or they'll make kombucha, or they'll, their wives are big into flowering, all that kind of stuff. And there's all sorts of things you can get into the farmer market. And I mean, really, the farmer market might be the original side hustle, because that's what people are doing in the farmer market, is they have their own little extra money that they're doing to be able to create things. And so if you have a farmer's market and you have something that you would like to sort of put out there, that could be something that you take advantage of. Denominational work. Now, if you're not in denomination, you can skip this one. But if you're in a denomination, you'd be surprised by how much your denomination are willing to employ their pastors for side stuff. For example, coaching. A lot of denominations have opportunity, or spiritual direction. Those are two specific examples that sometimes they'll pay their pastors to do coaching and spiritual direction. Another example would be like running a cohort, or running a seminar, or facilitating things, or even just being the one at conferences or things like that do some of the help setup, or help some of the running of things, like any of the sort of seasonal work that you see your denominations doing. Oftentimes pastors are getting paid to sort of help do that sort of stuff. So if you reach out to your superintendent or bishop or whatever, however your structure polity works, reach out to your people and just say like, hey, I'm willing to help you out. Do you have any extra gigs that I can be part of? And honestly, you can make a few hundred a month if you do it right, or sometimes it's just chunks of money, right? Like when I helped run a cohort for our denomination, and I was just facilitating it. I wasn't teaching anything. I just was the one that made sure all the people that were scheduled when they were scheduled and what they were doing. And I've made $1,900 just running that for 10 weeks. So, I mean, it ended up working out to a few $100s a month, but it was a great opportunity. Memorials. Now, this is fascinating because it's only a side hustle that pastors can really participate in. And I don't mean you hope for people to die in your church. That would be a terrible way to make a side hustle. A memorial is, let's do this. I have a pastor friend that put his kids through private school by contracting himself out to memorial homes. So that's what I mean by the side hustles. A lot of times memorial homes are needing pastors to do memorial services. In fact, my mom even works at one. She's an office manager for a memorial home. And sometimes I'll even get desperate calls from her that says like, hey, we need a pastor for Saturday. Could you do it? It'll make $300. And so what it basically is you contact your local memorial homes and say, hey, I'm a Christian pastor that's willing to do memorial services when you have needs. And they'll call you and they'll say like, hey, we have somebody that needs a memorial service. Could you be willing to do it? Here's what our fees are. Here's how much we pay. And because what happens is people will show up to the memorial homes, and the great grandma Judy has passed away, and they'll say she was a devout Christian, but none of her descendants happen to be, they don't know pastors, they don't go to church, they don't know, or maybe they're just American Christians where they've never really gone to church, and maybe even great grandma Judy didn't go to church, and so they want a Christian pastor. They don't want anyone else to do it. They want a Christian pastor because we're American Christians, that kind of idea. And so they call you up and you get into this, and this is a cool side hustle. It's hard to predict, but most often you might get one or two different. I mean, if you go to a lot of memorial homes and you contract it, you can make it a full-time job. But if you only have a couple in town, or maybe one in town, it may be once or twice a month type thing that you could do. But still, it's a few $100s every month that you can put back into your bank account. Chaplain, right? This one's an interesting one because there's chaplains for sports teams, or chaplains for hospitals, or chaplains for memorial homes, or hospice houses, or things like that. Almost every place still desires and needs chaplains, and not all of them can afford full-time chaplains. The reason I put part-time to full-time is because obviously full-time chaplain is a real job. Even part-time chaplain's a real job, but there are other places that if you're willing to sort of put your back into it and talk to some of these places that would want just somebody to come 5 to 10 hours a week. That's all they can afford, or that's all they have, or that's all they have available. Or maybe, because if we go to the other extreme, because I'm specifically thinking about smaller places like a small hospice house that may only want a few hours a week. But let's go the other way. The big places, they might have people that they can't afford because they have a huge staff of chaplains. They just need somebody to cover specific shifts. So anyways, there's lots of different ways you could do that. Typically you have to have CPE to be able to be a chaplain. So if you haven't gone to CPE, this one's not something that I would consider, because you need about 40 hours of clinical pastoral education to be able to even be considered, even as a side hustle chaplain. So that's something that you would need to make sure that you had as part of your master's program or MDiv or whatever. Obviously, seasonal work. Right now we're talking about, Christmas. They're starting to hire for more delivery drivers and Christmas warehouse help and things like that. That you could, seasonal work is a huge thing that you maybe just, because if you can make $2,000 within 2 months, then the rest of the year you don't have to worry about it, right? So like that's seasonal work is it doesn't seem like a side hustle, because you're doing it just in chunks and you're not doing it over the course of the year. But if you're good at sort of managing your money, you just don't make enough of it, a seasonal job would be an amazing opportunity, because you could just kill yourself for 2 months, but then make enough money to sort of stretch it through the rest of the year would be huge. Data entry. Data entry is an interesting one, because this is, once again, it's real monotonous and real boring, but that's why they hire people to do it. It's very remote usually. It can be hybrid, because there are certain companies that might want you to come in and do their books. But most of the time you can get remote data entry jobs where they hire you out and they send you these sheets that they basically have been copied in, and you're just digitally editing them into spreadsheets and sending them back. And there's a whole programs that have made it easier for data entry software to make it easier for data entry people to do. But yeah, I mean, 15 to 20 bucks an hour when you're spending time on your own, in your own house, in your own room, whatever. This is a good opportunity for pastors to be able to make a little extra money on the side. This one, Microtask, Mechanical Turk. If you haven't heard of Mechanical Turk, it's a subsidiary of Amazon. And you can type it in, Mechanical Turk, into thing. It's an interesting one because it's microtasks. Oh man, it's hard to explain, but it's basically like a whole list of different microtasks that you can apply for or click into. And some of them are data entry, some of them are identifying pictures, some of them are whatever. And you're just doing these microtasks for like 60 cents or whatever, because it takes you like 10 seconds to do. And you're just doing a bunch of microtasks. And typically for Amazon, Mechanical Turk one, there's other microtask sites out there, but the Mechanical Turk one, it just gets credited to your Amazon account. So for me, when I did Mechanical Turk, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. When I did Mechanical Turk, basically it was to offset my wife's Amazon spending. That was really my whole goal, so we could not have to pay that bill every month. And so that's one that's, but you can look into micro tasks. That would be something that would fully remote. It's all just doing little tasks. Maybe it even would be sort of listening to audio and transcribing it, things like that. TaskRabbit or Thumbtack. Now, these are two different websites. That's why I list them. And there's probably others like it. But TaskRabbit and Thumbtack is basically being hired to do something in your area, right? Whether it's hanging a picture frame, replacing a toilet, moving a furniture. It's all sorts of, if you've ever been a youth pastor, and all the calls that you get that says like, hey, can you help me move? Or can you help my piano get shifted from, like, this is what has become of that. Like, somebody thought, like, what if we turn this into a site? And so you can get hired, you can create your own profile and what jobs you're willing to do and what things you're willing to accomplish. I mean, there's people fully on TaskRabbit that are they're sole experts in putting together IKEA furniture. So like someone will call you and say, hey, I'll give you $200 on through TaskRabbit to come put together this bookshelf because I hate putting together IKEA furniture. And that's what you do. You just sit there, you put together a bookcase, and then you walk away, and TaskRabbit makes sure you get paid. And so whatever, like odd jobs or even manual labor jobs, or if you do have specific skills that people would need, whether it's like, obviously no big plumbing or no big electrical or those kind of things. I don't think those are really on there yet, but only the small stuff. Like if you're fixing a clogged drain or something like that, that would be part of it. So TaskRabbit, Thumbtack's a great opportunity to do sort of odd jobs around your neighborhood. And honestly, for church planners, I've always thought this would be a unique one, because you're literally in your local community ministering to people that actually need help. And you have an opportunity to sort of introduce yourself and be a kind and a light to them. So online tutoring is kind of an old side hustle that maybe you've already heard about. There's sites and places that you can get on to be an online tutor. And just sort of sit with kids or even college students and others that are struggling through X, Y, or Z, and they, have hired a tutor, and then you sit and help them through it. So that's another great opportunity. Adjunct professor. This one has to be sort of in your knowledge data bank. If you have a master's in divinity or whatever, even not, I know some people that teach like foundations of youth ministry just because they're very accomplished in youth ministry. And so you could teach intro to Bible. There's a lot of universities have realized that it might be cheaper for these off classes to have adjunct professors. So you can be that adjunct professor, apply to be an adjunct professor, or if there's like a local college nearby, you happen to know some of the deans, or you happen to be a graduate from there, reach out and say, I'd be willing to teach an adjunct class. Let me know if you have any need. That's an awesome opportunity to make, a few $1,000s in a semester. And sometimes once you've already built it, then you're just repeating it. Like then you just do it again, and it's easier the next time. The first time might be a lot of work up front. Obviously substitute teacher, bus driver. I just know too many pastors that do this to not include it. But it's pretty obvious what it is. I did look up the rates. It's about $100 to $200 a day, depending on your district, to be a sub. It's about $20 an hour, also depending on the district, to be a bus driver. And you can even be a bus driver that's just for special events. For sporting events, you don't have to be the one that does it every morning at bus pickup stops. But it is an opportunity for pastors to make a little extra money and still have the rest of their career and life and schedule in front of them. The other thing that I have done, and I have friends that have done, is teach at a Christian school, but on not as like first grade or something, but like in the extra subjects. Bible or PE or computer or music, right? If you're a worship pastor, you can come one time a week and teach music to all the classes throughout the day, and that's your one time a week, and you get a good amount of money for it. So like that's an opportunity. Obviously Bible, most pastors could teach Bible with their eyes closed, so that's another good one. And then lastly, I think real estate. And this one's different because there's a lot of different tracks into real estate. But if you went and got your real estate license and you only sold to one person every single month, you would end up with a few $1,000s every month. And that's all, and you don't have to do much. Maybe it's just people you naturally know or people that you can do. So that's the like one track that's like real estate. You can also get into sort of real estate, like investing or real estate sort of helping. You can do helping of flipping of houses. There's a lot of different ways into real estate and a lot of different ways to make money doing real estate. There's a whole like there's a guy that's really into I'm gonna pull him up real quick. He's a pastor and he's really into he's tent making pastors, but a lot of what he talks about in tent making pastors is real estate stuff, is Chris Galanos. And Chris Galanos has a whole site and a whole newsletter and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of it's focused on this specific tent making real estate and the different ways that you can find your way into it. And so really the question then becomes, I need a side hustle. What now? What are my next steps, right? Maybe you've decided your church isn't going to pay you more, or you're just in a tight spot. You're like, I need something, or you just want extra money. Maybe your bills all are paid, because honestly, the way I got into side hustling was my wife and I's income made exactly what we needed to like live. And I'm not talking about just the bills. I'm talking about groceries and all, just like, but there was like no margin. And it just drove me crazy. I wanted a little more margin. And so I started to figure out other ways in which I can make a few $100s a month. So I didn't like have even a set budget. I was just like, even if it's just $200, that'd be nice. Something we can do. So figure out how much you need. Work out your budget. This is going to be very important because all these side hustles have different sort of outputs. Do you need $200? Do you need $500? Do you need $1,000? Do you need it every month? What amount of money would get you to where you need to go, right? And so then figure out how much time you have, because like I said, these are all different. Every side hustle is going to take some time. I wish I could tell you there's a sweet side hustle for pastors where you like don't have to do anything, it just gives you money, right? Like that would be a dream, but all of them take time. And so you have to figure out like which ones you're willing to be and how much time you are willing to invest and how much time you're going to have. Because if you can go do Instacart and you only have mornings, perfect, right? Like, or if you only have evenings, then get on an Amazon Flex and deliver some packages. Or if you don't have anything and you don't really know what your schedule is going to be, then maybe one of the remote jobs that allows you to sort of work as you go would be better. So like those are the steps that you need to take. And then I'm willing to help anyone beyond that. And we'll get a link that's out in that you can use, or you can just email me, and we can go from there. But I would love to be able to even sit with you and say, and iron out some of these, because this was basically 30 minutes and we just sort of breezed through it, right? All these 20 ideas. So maybe you want, like, there was 3 or 4 that stuck out to you and you're like, oh man, I really wish I had more time. Like, well, let's sit down just one-on-one and we'll do a little bit more time together, a little bit more figuring things out and narrowing it down, and what does it look like, and then go from there. I mean, that's a high return on investment. You pay a little bit of my coaching fee, and then that's easy to go from there. So those are the steps. But thank you, especially Matthew and Nathaniel, and there's a couple others popped in and out, but I will actually send out the link and we'll put it on the website. This will be a future thing. Part of what we wanted to do was have this opportunity. One of the things that happens for me as the front lines of the discovery call, because I get lots of discovery calls, at least 4 or 5 a month out of 30, that are like, all they want is a side hustle. And so we were like, we got to develop something where we help pastors sort of navigate side hustles. And so that's why we put this together. But it's really knowing that how webinars work. I knew that was mainly going to be just to record it, share it later. And so thank you guys. Thank you for your time. And let me know if you need anything. My email is mark@ihelppastorsgetjobs.com. You can email me at any time and we'll talk a little bit more from there.